Hi, church family. Thank you so much for joining me today as we continue on in our journey through the Gospel of Matthew. I hope that you're picking up on a couple of things that are happening and showing up in our readings. I hope that you've noticed the number of Old Testament references that Matthew includes in his gospel. In fact, almost every chapter in Matthew includes at least one Old Testament reference. You see, Matthew was writing to an audience of primarily Jewish individuals, and he was trying to emphasize the fact that Jesus was the fulfillment of all that had been promised. So pay attention to those Old Testament references as you read, and also pay attention for the number of times that the Pharisees have interactions with Jesus. You see, they're trying to trip him up. They're trying to get him to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing so that they can hold him accountable. But Jesus has amazing answers and responses for the Pharisees in every interaction. And that's what we find in today's reading in Matthew chapter 12. I'm going to look specifically at verse 33. The Pharisees had questioned Jesus, but he replies, and I'm going to paraphrase this verse a little bit, but he says, a good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A tree is known by its fruit. I love this season of spring when the azaleas are bursting with colors, but it's really just a handful of weeks in the spring that we see the true colors of these azaleas. The rest of the year, the azaleas are all green. They all match. It doesn't matter if they bloom white or fuchsia or a darker shade of pink or a light shade of pink. They're the same exact azaleas the majority of the year. But in the spring, that color bursts through and we see the true identity of that kind of azalea. Well, the same is really true with us. And this is what Jesus is saying in these passages here, that a tree is known by its fruit. We are known by our fruit. Jesus was known by the fruit of his ministry. He also says in these passages that what we say comes from our heart. It overflows from our heart. So if our heart is at a good place, then good flows from our heart. And if our heart is not at a good place, then things that are not positive and not kind flow from our heart. So one, Jesus was trying to emphasize he was true. He was the true Messiah, and only good would come from his mouth. Goodness, I hope that we can be at a point where we can say the same, that our heart is at a good place and only good flows from our heart. This passage reminds me of the fruit of the Spirit. It's found in Galatians chapter 5. Our children in Children's Church were just finishing a series on the fruit of the Spirit. And I encourage you to look up that passage in Galatians 5, that it's these fruit of the Spirit that identify who we are as believers and set us apart as believers because of the things we do, the things that we say, because all of that flows directly from our hearts. I hope that you'll be blessed today and throughout our season of Lent.